It's an Apple series, but being an Apple, I said, could you give me a couple of iPhones that I can use on set? And instead of a couple, they sent me 11. Most of the car scenes that I am with Colin driving, the iPhone is very practical because I can put it behind the steering wheel.
Film and cinemas relates to us in such a deep way.
In the Constant Garden, one of these screening for influential people, that Hillary Clinton tells one of her assistants, we have to look into chemical companies. To me, that was one of the biggest trophies that I got, that I said,
Following focus thing is probably if not the most toughest job on the set.
sensitive and beautiful acting from all of the actresses and actors. You are right, that is a very, very powerful scene. I remember shooting it and being very moved by it.
Episode 6 for Sugar is out, right? I
Yes.
think okay, so we can talk about episode 6 to start off
Yeah.
with. Um, so I was told about Sugar by Richard, who shot some of the episodes of Masters of the Air a few months ago,
Yes.
and he told me about it probably in January or December, maybe no, January, end of January, and I saw it come up, and I started watching it. The thing that hooked me on right off the bat, being in the world of film, how there were such cool references to the films from the 60s, and it had that film noir type of approach to it. Um, what was your first reaction when you read the script of the pilot? You did just for the audience. What episodes did you shoot?
I did 1, 2, um, 4, 5, and 8.
And 8. So what drew you, or what was your first reaction when you started reading the script for Sugar, the pilot episode?
Um, I am not very much into police and detective and this type of thing. My my line of work is mostly more political and kind of engaged, if you would say, or something like that. So I'm not very much into it. But from the very beginning, Fernando made it a point that we we made it look as real and natural as possible. And the fact that we were telling this very particular story about these aliens coming to Earth to save us, um, we had to make it in a way that it would be believable. So the what we talked with Fernando was that it should look as realistic as possible, almost kind of documentary style, in
Hmm.
order to be believable. And one thing that we had the fact that Sugar was so fond of cinema, that was in the script. But what came up when we were doing the series is, well, if he is an alien and he's so fond of cinema, he used cinema in order to understand how humans behave. So, and that is something that came up while we were doing it. We said, well, let's use film references as something that he learns our behavior, because living somewhere far away, he grabbed in the internet or whatever, films. That was his first contact with the human race living coming. So he knew us as humans through cinema, which I thought was very interesting. And I said, well, that can be a very nice homage to cinema if we embrace that. And that is something that kept growing and growing. And Fernando Stutz, the editor, he is a great film buff and study. So he started adding these little bits and pieces of film, which made it pretty complicated for Apple because they had to buy all the rights to these and so and so, and that's why
Yeah.
maybe it a little bit too. But I think it was a great idea because it made the audience see us through cinema. It's through cinema that, we cinema is kind of like a picture of what we are, how we
Right.
behave. So, and living here, for example, in South America, it's amazing how much, if you if we analyze how much we get from the behavior of the films that we receive from America, from the big countries, so yes, that was being from an underdeveloped country. uh I thought it was very nice if cinema was uh a way of teaching, a way of, because that's something that happens to us. We South Americans are kind of aliens, and we learn how to behave in the first world by watching films. I'm being a
Right.
little bit
No,
exaggerated, but
no, that is so true, and I think it's even that theory, in my view, can be applied to people who are movie buffs versus who are not movie buffs, right? I'm gonna go on a tangent here because one of the reasons, aside from many reasons, obviously being in the film world, I was drawn to I'm not into detective stuff either. Like I just don't care about stuff like True Detective, and it doesn't intrigue me or crime or real crime mysteries and stuff. But the I was watching it, and the only thing that hooked me on was that references to the film. And I directed a feature narrative documentary, which coincidentally, you shot City of God, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Um, when we were in the editing stage, my film is called Citizen of Moria, right here, this poster,
Oh, nice.
and it's a narrative. It's a one man's journey, like an Afghan refugee's journey in a refugee detention center after he leaves his family behind in Afghanistan. Um, we were trying to figure out the opening of the film. How should we hook the audience as opposed to just a journey? And somebody told me watch City of God. And I watched, and they said just watch the opening, just for the reference. And I watched the opening, the chicken scene in the streets, and that gave me the hook of about 70 seconds to make the opening of the my film. It had nothing to do with in the story that you had, but just the inspiration.
Helped
And
you.
that film was about a filmmaker too, and how his references to the film helped him through his journey to get where he wants to be. So film and cinemas relates to us in such a deep way, very similar to books, but they're
Yes.
so visual, right? People don't, I mean, I learned so much from cinema, like from, really whether it's powerful dialogue like Shawshank Redemption, lines, or, Forrest Gump, stuff like that. And it's so
Yeah.
important to our culture everywhere in the world.
Yeah. And if you think of the new generations, these little kids that they spend the whole time on cell phones watching, yeah, and scrolling and everything, it's here. It's here. It's our behavior being
It, it is.
shown. Yeah.
Yeah, it's remarkable. And I mean, I'm not going to talk about episode 7 and 8, but I finished the series. Um and because I was wondering how episode 6 ended, which is where revealed that Colin Farrell's a sugar is an alien. And I was
Hmm.
wondering, 6 episodes in, like all of a sudden, we don't get any kind of a hint he's an alien. Okay, how is this going to play out in the next 2 episodes? And I was kind of worried that is it just kind of tossed in there for the hell of it? Like, when you're first watching it, even though you're kind of blown away. But then I finished it and I'm like, ah. So I mean, I'm not going to talk about it, and but just to kind of tell you, like, I actually felt initially, okay, there's no point to this, what just happened, but it does connect afterwards. Just a comment, and
Yeah.
phenomenal cinematography. Even some of the camera shots where the camera was tilted, and it just felt very real, as you said, a documentary approach.
Hmm. Yeah, that was something that we went after. And the other thing is, I try my best to not interfere very much with the relationship of the actors on set. So I try to make it easy. So this way of shooting leaves them very free because we avoid marks and all those traditional
Yeah.
things. We just let them go around and we follow them, and they feel much, and it helps a lot for them, to perform and everything, because we follow them and they don't have to follow the camera. So that is something that I've been doing lately, and to make it easier, because for a certain time, uh, technique was something that was very harsh, and it would change the way the actors related to cinema, because they had to be concerned with the mark and with the best light and everything, and that was limiting to maybe exposing their feelings or whatever. So now it's all about, to me, it's all about them performing, and let me follow them.
That's a pretty interesting thing that you mentioned, right? Because you can do that in documentaries, right? Because you're literally following a subject in the real world with real consequences. But I know, most actors, in general, they like they want to know where they need to stand from here, where they need to begin, where they need to end. They seek that guidance from the director and the assistant director. So does that sometimes come up like, oh, I need to know where the mark is because they're used to so much of following that kind of world?
Yeah, maybe at the beginning but then when we start working, when we're a little bit into episode one, and they start uh they start enjoying this, and they start finding it, there's no mark, go wherever you want, it's your acting. So, they start getting accustomed to it, and they enjoy it. I find they enjoy it. And let me mention, since you mentioned City of God, this is something that we kind of discovered in City of God, because the the proposal that Fernando had for City of God was he was going to work with non-actors that he had trained, and but it was very difficult for me, these kids that were non-actors, to tell them, stand here, here's the best light, and they have to act. So when we did the first we did a little short feature before City of God with Fernando, and we tested all this, and I ended up and I said, Fernando, we cannot treat these kids as if it was a film. We'll have to let them do it, let them do the stuff, and I'll fall. And I conditioned all my equipment and everything to this point of view. Actually, the first thing that I told the production people in Rio de Janeiro, where I was going to say it, I said, I need an excellent first AC that will follow focus, improvising, and not measuring with a tape or anything, because there won't be a chance to measure with a tape. He'll just have to improvise, and if the kid is 1.5 meters, he'll have to, find the focus, and yes, and that's how I met Lula Carvalho, that today is a great, great cinematographer. But he was the assistant cameraman that helped me with all this improvising that. So that is something that I learned from there, and I found. And then when we went to do the next film, we Fernando and me were accustomed to this, so we offered it to Ray Fiennes in the Constant Gardener, and he loved it, because he felt free, and we enjoyed it a lot. So it's something that we've come up with, and we've been doing it, and it helps.
I'm so glad you talked about follow focus because I was going to ask you that about sugar, that how when your subjects are free, the following focus thing is probably if not the most toughest job on the set,
Yes, yes.
right? And to be able to have that to the dot with that, I mean, even with measurements, it's hard,
Hmm.
but without measurements, how challenging was that? I guess
Well,
I should be asking that from AC, but
yeah, and also because the poor ACs, I surprise them very much, because suddenly I'm filming here, but suddenly I listen to a noise in the background, and I pan over there, and they have to, rack the focus immediately there. Fortunately, today they work with these monitors that have very accurate, so they're
yeah.
able, through the monitor, do it. Those tools have come out to help us a lot. So before, it was completely impossible, difficult. You had to guess. But today they're working on monitors, so they're going there and they have these little tools that help them to, find the exact focus. So things have gone easier on that sense. But
Right.
it's tough for them. Yes, you're right. It's very, very tough on them.
You mentioned The Constant Gardener. I just have to tell you, it's one of my favorite films, and I haven't seen it in a long time. I got to see it again. I saw it when it came out, but I'm sure, as you evolve in life, you have a different perspective on everything.
Yes.
But the subject matter that it dealt with, right? With Rachel,
Yeah.
was it Rachel Wise? Was in it? Yeah.
Yes. What you
And
want.
Ray
Yes.
Fiennes. I mean, it was a phenomenal movie, and I remember now that you mentioned it, it was very docu style, right? Like it was very
Exactly.
handheld, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
phenomenal film. Going back to Sugar, what lenses did you mostly work with throughout the series, and what camera did you shoot it on?
Yeah, that is another issue because of trying to make things easy on set. I prefer to use zoom lenses, which I can reframe immediately. So we do one take, for example, in a kind of wide shot, and then from the next take, I go a little bit tighter, and we don't have to be changing lenses and stop the dynamic on set. So basically, I had three zooms, a very wide one, a medium one, and a longer one. And
What
I
were the
would,
focal lengths? Sorry,
I'm very bad at numbers, but I think it was an 18 to 30 something. Then it
35
was,
probably, yeah.
yeah, 35. Then it was a medium that was from 24 to 45. And then we had a 30 to 110 or
Okay.
something like
Yeah.
that covered. So yes, and I was using Sony Venice, which I like very much the sensor of it. And also, this is something interesting because it's an Apple series. I had been using iPhones for some time already, but being in Apple, I said, could you give me a couple of iPhones that I can use on set? And instead of a couple, they sent me 11
Wow.
iPhones.
What
Because
were you gonna do with the phones?
no, because the good thing is that it takes a bit of a time to unload what you,
Yeah.
because we record in very heavy 4K and so on. So in order to not stop, I would have different iPhones. So I filled it one, I gave it to the DIT to download, and I got the other one, and we kept shooting. So yes, I mixed the iPhones pretty much. Like most of the cars of the car scenes that I am with Colin driving, the iPhone is very practical because I can put it behind the steering wheel. I can put it, I can move around very easily, and I use these goggles that I see the image that I'm doing. So, I use the iPhones very much on this show.
Wow, I'm surprised. I couldn't tell any difference in terms of
we
grading.
we we did quite a lot of testing of what we had to prepare in the setup of cameras so we could mix them. So yes, we were cutting in a car, for example. I would do a wider shot with a Sony from outside the car, and then I would go inside the car with the iPhone, and it mixed well, fortunately. And I've been doing that for some time now already.
That's amazing. Were you using any app like Filmic or Blackmagic, or was
Yes,
it straight?
Filmic
Which one?
Pro.
Filmic
Filmic
Pro.
Pro.
Okay.
Filmic Pro,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a great app.
It is.
Um,
It
you
is.
should try out the Blackmagic one too. It's not
I
bad.
just received it yesterday. I, I'm
Yeah.
I'm I'm preparing for a film that I'm gonna do next days, and I didn't know about that. So the colorist from Brazil that is going to take care of what I'm being shooting, he sent me the app and I downloaded it. So I'm gonna be testing it and enjoy it.
Yeah, yeah, it's a great app. You said Sony Venice. Have you looked into the Burano yet?
No.
So, no. Okay. Have you obviously you know about the Burano, right? Sony Burano.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you
Yeah.
seen any test footage from it?
No.
Okay. It's supposed to be. it's supposed to replace Venice. That's what they say.
Yes.
But I was just curious if you had, because you mentioned Venice. Um, again, going
The
back
thing
to
is, the thing is that I question myself, where do we want to go? Because I think we've reached such a
the
quality that,
maximum, yeah.
yeah, I don't know what we can do better. I mean, I know there's lots of engineers working and researching, but what do they want to get? Unless they give us 3D images, the rest, we have the best. I mean, these cameras,
I
Arri and Sony, and they're delivering a quality that's amazing.
Yeah, and Venice has this noise that I really like. The film noise, and there's
Yes,
one camera. I don't know if you ever used any of the Blackmagic lineup cameras ever.
I do have
Um,
here. Yes, yeah.
so the very first one they came out with, the 2.5K one, about 12 years ago. I shot my first documentary on it, and that it had such out of camera great amount of noise that no other camera has come close to it. And after that, even Blackmagic stopped, going in that direction. Um, but you're right about the cameras being so up there now, which is why I think one of the reasons Red sold its company to Nikon, because how far can they go? Like where's they've what 8K, the helium, and what's beyond that, like you said,
Exactly.
unless it's a brand new technology where you look at films in a completely different way, whether it's Apple Vision Pro or something
Yeah.
of that nature.
Mm.
Yeah, we have reached that maximum capacity, and if anything, I'm not even too crazy about now too sharp of an image. Like I need something to have
Yes,
like a filmic feel.
exactly. Yes, yes, yes. Absolutely right. Yeah, talking about Black Magic, I've had Black Magic for some time now. I had the smallest one, the HD, and for example, I did a film that with Tom Cruise called American Made. He's a pilot,
Yes,
and
I love
all
that
the
movie.
yeah, and all the scenes of him piloting, he is real piloting, and I am sitting with him in the plane, and because I couldn't be with a big camera obstructing his view, so I would be with my Black Magic just filming him in the real piloting. So yeah,
It's
tech
wonderful. It's
it's
technology
wonderful.
is
Yeah,
amazing.
I love it.
I
Yeah.
think the have you seen the movie The Creator by Gareth Edwards?
No, no, I
So
have.
that
It's in
it's
my
it's a
list.
good it's a good film. That was actually completely shot on oh my God. What camera was it? It's a small camera. Uh my memory
One
just
of those
faded.
Nike.
No, no, no.
No,
Let me
Sony,
just
Sony.
it was a Sony camera.
Yeah,
FX3. FX3.
FX3. Yeah, yeah, I heard
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um Going back to Sugar, what was, I mean, we kind of touched upon a little bit of things here and there, but what was one of the biggest challenges on any of the episodes, whether it was a scene, um, obviously keeping in mind we're talking about up to episode 6, uh, or lighting or weather, anything of that nature?
Hmm. Every time somebody asks me this question, I get mixed up because to
Okay.
me, everything is a challenge, and I confront it as a challenge. You know, yeah, one of the big challenges was that we were shooting a lot on sets, on studios,
Mm.
and I wanted it to look real. So lighting in order so it looked real. So I would maybe burn out a little bit of the outside or put some mistakes in order to make it look more real. But yeah, I'm not very good at finding,
That's
you know,
okay.
to me every challenge, every day is a
Sure.
challenge, and I try to get it the best I can.
Got it. What was there any particular scene that you really like, whether it ignited something emotionally, or the cinematographer in you, or just anything? I know I'm not I know it's hard to ask that question because you can't compare so many things when you're working on a film, but at the same time, something that left a mark with you.
I was very, very, very moved by the acting, the actors. it was such a beautiful cast that I enjoyed every single second of filming because I was seeing such a sensitive and beautiful acting from all of the actresses and actors.
Yeah.
The it was a pleasure in that sense, me to be working with them and to be, Colin is amazing. All of them, they're so beautiful, so nice that it was a pleasure to work with them and to film them. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, the most powerful scene was, I think there were two, but one was not as much, but the most powerful one was when Olivia's father, he's sitting with Olivia's grandfather in the hospital, or in his bedroom where he's lying down, and he has a very sour relationship with his dad, right? And he
Yes.
just keeps talking and talking and talking, and then he's like, you know what, I don't know why I'm telling you this, and he just broke down, right? And it just that was the most humanistic moment in the entire series, and it was just so powerful where you have this relationship that is so not healthy, and then he only came to his father to talk about the loss of his son.
Mhm.
I thought that was really well done.
Yeah, no, really, that is you are right. That is a very, very powerful scene. I remember shooting it and being very moved by it. Yes, it's about human relationship. Yes, you're right. It's
Yeah.
very, very, very powerful.
What is something that you really, in general, again, it's a very cliche question. I try to avoid this, but when you're on a film set or a series set or whatnot, every story is different. But at the end of the day, the essence and the core of all the stories are more or less, same. What kind of emotions do they drive? Whether they make you laugh, whether they make you cry, whether they make you think. What was one film or more than one or a series where you learned a lot about certain subject that you did not know before? So whether it was American Made, I mean that's true story. Constant Gardner was about all the pharmaceutical companies and everything. Just in
Mhm.
that sense, what was something that you learned um, from working on any of the film or series?
Well, in all of these films, you learn a lot. Like, as you said, in the Constant Gardener, I suspected, or maybe I had uh, sensation that these things happen, but being there and all the research that I have a very beautiful anecdote from the Constant Gardener that is one of the biggest prizes I got, trophies I got, was a friend of mine that was in New York when they did like uh, one of these screening for influential people, and it was at the moment of the electoral campaign, and Hillary Clinton was there
Mm,
with her people. And as they're walking out of the cinema, people gathered together. He listens that Hillary Clinton tells one of her assistants, "We have to look into this thing about the chemical companies. Uh, that is something serious. We have to investigate that." To me, that was, as I said, one of the biggest trophies that I got. That I said, yes, that's what I did the film for, to make people conscious about things and make people think about things. And yes, um, in every film you learn a little bit. Like you said, in American Made, I knew about the drug, but I didn't know what the CIA had done in America because of that. And you know, there's so much research done by the writers and everything that you end up learning a lot. And I enjoy very much when I go into a film researching the background and everything in order to understand better what I'm going to do. Uh, I, I always say that the moment I work most in a film is in pre-production because it's
mm.
when I search, I test, I look for, I'm very, very involved in the preparation of the film. So yes, every film has taught me something about life that, it's a wonderful profession to be able to do this because you get to meet so beautiful people and you get to go into, different situations and subjects and things that it's very rich. And you even get paid for that, which is amazing.
And you get to travel as well.
Yeah, meet beautiful people, and the crew that I worked with in Sugar was amazing. It's curious because I do more film than I do very little television, but
Right.
these people were coming mostly from television. They were from series and stuff like that, so they had different language and different behaviors to many things, but it was amazing to learn from them many things and to get into that world. So yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned about you get paid for it. My colleague who's also my cinematographer, we whenever we're traveling for something, we just naturally you chat, and there was this one conversation that we had that, sometimes you forget about things in the when you're really busy and you don't appreciate life. And we talked about this, that how lucky we are that we get to do what we want, to get paid for what we want to do, plus we get to travel,
Yeah,
and it's the most incredible thing. And then you're telling stories that make impact, right? I truly believe even the most, non-impactful stories, like, if you want to like take a look at movies like I don't know, I'm just throwing out a name here, Bad Boys, or like a disaster movie. They do even those kind of movies have impact on people. And
hmm,
the cinema is just such a powerful tool that, and then the way you just said that, how Hillary Clinton said what she said, it's an amazing thing that, whoa, I did something that is gonna at least, bring about some sort of change, or at least a thought is there. Whether it happens or not, that's a different story.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Going,
that's why I love so much documentaries, and I I I engage very much in documentaries. I'm doing two or three at the moment now that I love documentaries because of that, because you're telling the real world.
stories.
Yeah.
What documentaries are you working on, if you are able to share?
Um, yeah, of course. I'm working. I just finished one on Philippe Gentil, that is a French marionette artist. Amazing guy, very beautiful
Hmm.
guy. Uh, I'm doing one on Uruguayan political situation now. The difference is the unfairness of our system here.
Sure.
I'm working on one about a lady that had a health accident, and she is telling the story of that health accident. So it's films that you film bits and pieces every now and then, and
You're right.
they come together later.
Cool. Awesome. Looking forward to those films. Um, can you give me a little bit of a backstory of how you got into films? What was there a certain moment in life that triggered that
Yes,
journey?
it's very easy. I am from the '60s generation, and the '60s generation was all about revolution. John Lennon say, you want a revolution. Yeah. So my generation was very concerned that we had to change everything in the
Mm,
world. And I had colleagues of friends of mine here going into guerrilla movements. I wasn't that brave, and I had a little bit of a art background because my grandfather was uh, a a paint critic and writer. My father was a theater director, so I was surrounded by art. So I said, well, maybe I can. And then I found some filmmakers like Solanas, the Argentinian, that were doing films that were motivating, that were showing the unfairness and everything of the world we live in. And I said, that is what I want to do. So I went into cinema in order to change the world, to do films that would change the world. And there wasn't a film school in Uruguay, so I found a film school in Brazil. So I moved to Brazil to study cinema. And while I was there, when I finished school after 4 years, Uruguay had became a dictatorship, so there wasn't any point in coming back to Uruguay. I had lots of friends that were in jail or had fled or whatever. So I stayed in Brazil and I tried to take a double life doing films that would pay my bills and parallel to that do films that would, you know, provoke some kind of thought or thing about
Right.
that. So that's something that I've been kind of doing as much as I can, doing having a parallel life, two lives, one to get money to pay the bills and the other one to make the films that I feel have to be done.
Amazing. And was it always cinematography, or was there other elements of film making that you were
I
sometimes
I
doing?
many documentaries I direct myself. Um, like for example, during the dictatorship here in Uruguay, I did a film that was alerting about the existence of this cooperation of the dictatorships called the Condor Plan. I don't know if you heard about that.
No, I have
Plan,
not.
El Plan Condor. That was something that Henry Kissinger promoted, that was making the dictatorship get together in order to interfere. And so you would have Uruguayan militaries going to Argentina and kidnapping people that were exiled there, and you had Brazilian militaries that were coming to Uruguay, and they would do it freely because there was this cooperation between the armies and the dictatorships. So I did a film that obviously I didn't sign the film because at that time we were in dictatorship. So it has no credits, but it's a film that tells the story about a Uruguayan couple that is exiled in Argentina, and they are kidnapped in Argentina with their two young kids, one of 4 and one of 1 year. They're they are brought to Uruguay. They are tortured and killed, their parents and killed. So the dictatorship ends up having these two kids. They don't know what to do. So they fly them to Chile and they abandon them in Chile in a square in Chile.
Wow.
So the story is this 4-year-old kid holding the hand of his little sister, 1.5, that barely managed to walk, and they left abandoned there in the plaza in that square in Chile until a family gets pity of them and adopts them, and they grew up, and today they're grown up uh, guys that tell the terrible story that they live. So I did a film telling this story, and going to Chile and interviewing the parents and everything, and yeah, denouncing this story. So these films I produce myself, I direct myself, I do a small crew.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I get it. I get it. No, that's the nature of our business. Sometimes we have to do that.
yeah, definitely.
Just to kind of wrap things up, uh, what aside from the documentaries you're working on, uh, anything else that's coming up in mainstream that you were able to discuss?
I just shot a film which I am in love with. I think it's going to be a beautiful film with Kanan Warsame, the singer composer. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, where are you based now?
In Toronto.
Toronto. Well, he fled from Somalia to Toronto when he was very young. He's
Okay.
Somali. He fled with his family. He immigrated, And then when he was older, he moved to New York and he did a great career as a musician and very good musician. And he wrote this film that has a bit of autobiography that
Okay.
is called Mother Mother, and we already filmed it,
Okay.
mostly in Kenya and a bit in Somalia.
Okay.
And Kanan is now editing it now, and it should come out soon. And I'm very happy about this film because it tells a beautiful story about a mother and her son, and it's very, very nice.
Is it something that's already been picked up by a distributor or a platform, or is it going through
Uh,
or you think
it's
it's going to go through a festival circuit first?
it's going to go through a festival circus first. Yes.
Sounds very, very fascinating. I've
Yes.
got to
Yeah.
noted it down, and I would love to see it eventually when it
Yes.
comes out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wonderful. Um, Thank you so much for
My
coming
pleasure.
on. I know you're really busy. Busy. I would love to chat with you one time about American Made and maybe Constant Gardener in detail
Okay.
and City of God if you have time. Just down the
We
road sometime.
have our
That'd be
contact
cool.
in on cell phone, so whenever you want, we'll make
Perfect.
an appointment. I hope I don't give you so much work as I did you this time, changing dates and everything. But
Oh no,
yeah.
no, no. Don't worry about it. It happens. I mean, we all got stuff going on, so
Mhm.
it's not something um I completely understand. It's not a big deal. Don't even worry
Thank you
about
for
it.
that. Thank you for that.
All right. No worries. You have yourself a great day. It was lovely chatting with you.
Thank you very much.